All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Strike Force. This time, an interview edition of it. And to let me turn off the volume on the browser for this stream first of all, as I keep on forgetting to do. But anyway, yes, today we have ourselves on a guest that we have been trying to get on a live stream for a while now, but it hadn't been getting into fruition. You remember around last December that we first tried to make this a full-on debate with S-Man moderating, right?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, and
Um,
finally we got the opportunity, and so let me allow him to introduce himself, Austin, aka Mjollnir Man.
well, my name is Mjollnir Man here on YouTube. I do music. Uh, Name on that's Orion Knight. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Orion Knight _. Um, I've been around the block. Me and Dark Khan go a little ways back, I'd say. And yeah, I've been making videos probably since 2014 on this channel. Finally broke through 1,000 subscribers this year, and just waiting to see what comes next.
Yeah, me and Mjolnir Man primarily knew each other by name, but we didn't actually get the opportunity to actually fully introduce ourselves with each other, at least one on one. Uh, During one of the episodes of Dark Cancer, you came on. It was like a drama conversation stream, you
Yeah, I
know.
was during the midst of that Jazzo Man stuff when it first came about, I want to say.
Yeah, it was when I was still in the process of making my Gate review video, and that's kind of what helped get you up to date on this, you know.
Yeah.
Although I don't want to make this a whole lot about Jocelyn because I know that you said that you do not want to you
No, I mean,
care that much about Jocelyn anymore, that you prefer to just make him irrelevant in your mind now.
he has tried to stir the pot on one occasion. I think he's tried starting some with the conundrum and involving me, but I just kind of
Like
told him to just kind of leave it be. I'll
when?
mention him. Oh, this probably would have been what was it? Conundrum probably got like 200 subscribers. He made some tweet on Twitter, and I told him congratulations
In
and
250?
or 250 something like that. And Josh was like, "Well, I wouldn't be congratulating him. It took him forever to get there, something like that." And I was like,
He's just being a dick at that point. I mean, he realized, or at least he says that he realized that he was being a bit of an asshole right then and there. But that's neither here nor there at this point. But do you see the one recent interview that Conundrum did with a guy called IC that ended up being an interview with Topher of KeeperCast as well?
um, I have not probably watched anything of the conundrums in about 2.5 weeks. I am aware of the IC character because I've seen a video of his on Josselman, but I do not know anything about an interview with Conundrum or Topher. So
All right. Let me try to find that video actually, because this video of Conundrums where he is interviewing both ICL and uh and freaking Topher, the leader of KeeperCast. I think it pretty much settles the drama and puts at ease somewhat some of the reputation that we thought we knew of KeeperCast originally. I mean, just to give an update as to what I said on the original Jocelyn video and what we all originally thought on KeeperCast, they're not quite as bad as Jocelyn was originally making them out to be. He was not keeping his information straight. Like, as far as doxing goes, Topher at least says that he's been trying to do his best to disassociate from the doxers. Like, for example, Tom Ventura, who is one of the names that I mentioned in my own video,
yeah,
that I suspected was threatening to dox Jocelyn. But he said that ever since around the time of RDP4, Tom Ventura is no longer part of KeeperCast. So I don't know for absolute certain if this is true, but I just give KeeperCast the benefit of the doubt, more or less.
yeah.
I mean, it seems that Topher overall is still quite a bit of a dick to Jocelyn, and judging by his personality, he would not necessarily be somebody that I would want to hang out with personally. But he isn't as dangerous as Jocelyn was originally making him out to be.
Yeah, I just remember, at the time, I kind of guess I bought the whole, like, oh, they're going to send rattlesnakes to my house or something if I don't comply. But, now that all the drama's washed away, I kind of find that far-fetched.
Yeah, perhaps.
But then again, like,
I don't know if they actually got talking about that in this interview here. I just posted it in the side chat. There's that if you want to watch that at some later point. But yeah. Cody Ray asks, drama happening? No, we are just talking about, for the record, what's happened in the past regarding drama. We find this to be settled. But yeah, we're just talking about of how this whole drama surrounding Jocelyn has pretty much been settled. And I think the last 2 months of this year, both here in November and next month in December, is going to probably be the quietest months of this year as far as drama goes.
yeah, it doesn't seem like the pot's been stirring that much.
Not really.
I mean, I really haven't really said anything to Josh. I mean, the first time he dissed me, that's when I grilled him. I think that was like back in July. The second time when he was on a stream with Dog Dick or whatever his name was, and they're like trying to find my number to prank call me and stuff, but it was just beneath me personally at that point. You just kind of know at that point that people are just trying to get you sucked into it. And
Right.
I just wasn't about to let it consume me, because how many diss tracks and how many videos and how many hangouts can you join before it's just redundant,
I think a person could argue that maybe we gone a little bit too far as our responses and attention that we were given to Jocelyn. But a good portion, there's like Jostlegate Prime when he was like in the midst of lying to us and we were starting to disassociate from him. Then there's post Jostlegate, like the aftermath of that. That is kind of an animal in of itself, different from Jostlegate, because post Jostlegate, that was like him picking fights with Jeeps and Faith, like as he was trying to like exploit Faith's rape for his or I don't know if it's that courteous for me to be mentioning this, but exploiting that for his arguments on subjective morality. That's how that went primarily. Like it was primarily arguments about subjective versus objective morality, and then it got stirred into something more drama related. And then ultimately, I think it's safe to say that it's resolved. I mean, Jeeps and Faith are no longer I don't know what he means by that, but Josso in the chat here says they being both of us. I didn't support that. Don't know what you mean by I didn't support that, Josso.
I don't know. I don't know what he's on half the time anymore. Yeah. So I'm just I just disregard it, honestly.
He's just joined the live chat right now. And there was also not all of it was talking about Jostlegate Prime. Some of the post Jostlegate stuff that was like video back and forths between both S-Man and Josso himself when he still had his American Josh channel up and running.
Yeah.
Going back on other issues, back and forth on other issues, religion, morality, other stuff like that. Some of it was related to the main drama, but that was like a minor issue in comparison. Phone number. I never tried to get it. He did. I'm not so sure that Mjollnir Man was trying to say that you yourself were trying to get Mjolnir's phone number, Josso.
Well, okay, so I wasn't there. I don't remember even being awake when he did his little stream, or no, actually I remember it because he wanted me to come on at like last minute to like address all these accusations Dog Dick was making or something like that. And, to me, it's like rude to just expect me to come on a live stream, drop of the hat, especially if I'm not on like the greatest of terms with you. So I just brushed it off and I was like, oh, it's just gonna be like petty little rat beef-esque stuff.
But anyway, I don't want to make this whole stream
Yeah.
about Jocelyn. Just wanted to
Because like even him posting those chat comments, it's just gonna spark something, and you know he thrives on the drama. So
who knows? I mean, probably rile him up to do a response video already for all we know. But the last thing that I made a request to him is that for his own sake, for all of our sake, that he never have contact with us again, which means Jocelyn, I would urge you not to go any further just so that we can like leave all this drama to rest. All right. I'm just talking about what happened in the past. I'm not talking about stirring anything back up for the future. But yeah. So anyway, how's your day been, Mjollnir?
Well,
would you rather me call you Austin?
you can call me Austin. You don't you don't have to call me by. I know it's kind of a mouthful, but I mean it was kind of a hectic day, honestly, because we had a snowstorm and driving to work was pretty not fun at all because it just felt like my Jeep was ice skating across the highway. But then I got to work and all the computer systems were down, so I really couldn't do anything at work for like 5 hours. Then it all got back up and running and was like status quo again. So I guess it turned out to be kind of average, but it started off pretty chaotic. A lot of coffee was consumed today, so.
I see. It wasn't that icy on the roads here in Wichita, honestly. Like it was icy primarily Sunday morning, which was like the biggest reason why barely anyone went to church that day, myself included. But this morning it wasn't so icy in comparison to Sunday morning. Yeah. By the way, if you don't mind saying, like, what kind of job do you work at?
So since I was 19, I've worked in the automotive industry. I got my start at Jiffy Lube. And then I went to another regional chain. I was a tech at a Ford dealership for a while. And not even for a while. I just didn't really like the job. So I left that one pretty quick. Was unemployed for a few months there. Not even few, probably like two months tops. And now I'm switched fields. I'm in the parts department now, actually, at a Chrysler dealership, so Dodge, Jeep, Ram.
So you work in the automotive industry?
Yeah, I've only had one outside of that one job that's not been automotive related. I worked at Taco Bell for a little bit back in the summer of 2016. Hated it.
Yeah, I worked Village Inn for quite a long time, which is another restaurant job. Have you ever heard of Village Inn?
It sounds familiar. I can't say that I'm too familiar with it, but I do vaguely know it.
Yeah, they're a pie shop and breakfast restaurant. They do some dinner dishes, but they're a lot better with breakfast than they are with dinner. Typically speaking, more of their breakfast dishes are made from scratch, like waffles and pancakes, stuff like that. Their pies, they're technically known for their pies as well, but their pies are just they come in boxes, already pre-made, basically. Especially the fruit pies, they come in frozen. We baked them on the spot, and the cream pies, we just decorated them. Was all like they were like just frozen cream on a crust. It's basically all they were. But yeah, Village Inn, I did not appreciate that job much at all. I mean, management was kind of smug and irritable and just pretty intolerable, I would say, for myself and a whole lot of the coworkers who worked there at Village Inn as well. So that's a thing. And the fellow coworkers at Village Inn, they were so drama obsessed, it seemed. Kind of the same way that some people can be on here on the internet, not naming any names, and no, just that does not just apply to you, Josh. So do not get any thoughts that I'm just singling you out or something like that. But
we've all been
yeah,
guilty of it to some degree, at least on YouTube.
what you say?
I think we've all been guilty of it to some degree. So
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
I mean,
Like there was like this one time when I was kind of questioning S-Man on his pro-life beliefs. I do not know if you watched S-Man's video on that. He did like a response video to me with a hashtag called S-Man is pro-life confirmed. That's a bit of an issue in of itself.
I don't know. I don't really watch a lot of content regarding that argument. I will say I was pro-choice or pro-life for a long time, and I was in like a pro-life organization when I was in high school. But I guess I turned pro-choice probably sometime around college.
Right. Well, we'll get to the issue of abortion probably some later time during this live stream. But yeah, this is just going to be like a general interview, not so debatey. It's more like just me asking you questions about yourself and your politics just in general. I mean, I don't want to like get anybody riled up that we're bringing down the thunder here and this is going to be like an entertaining verbal brawl or something like that.
We probably have to have S-Man moderate that one, honestly.
I don't think that it would get too much out of hand between you and me. I mean, if you compared it to how heated it would get between me and Ham or me and Owen.
Well, I don't know. I've seen some videos on that cult of Ham, so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. One that posted those called the Cult of Ham, the epic meltdown of Cult of Ham.
Yeah, I saw that one. I laughed. That was a good one. I don't want to bring it up again, but that was almost as good as Josh freaking out on Jeep's Creeps.
Oh, geez.
When he yelled.
Grill him, Darkcon. No, Red Feather, I'm too kind to mellow stoners. I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, I have only been to one Village Inn. It sucked, said Red Feather. Yeah, I mean, a whole lot of the food that they serve there at Village Inn is like some pre-frozen stuff. But as I was saying, the coworkers there, they weren't so very diverse in thoughts. It was another thing. Aside from them being kind of drama obsessed with each other, like they always had a rather petty issue with one another, it seemed. More so than my current job. A whole lot more so than my current job, which is why I like my current job better than my last job. But what was I gonna say? Not very diverse in thought. That was what I was gonna say. Like, I don't want to like play some victim mentality here or anything like that, but it was kind of a bummer that I was like the only one of very few people there with similar political beliefs to myself. Like it almost seemed like everybody there was a Bernie supporter. Now I know that you more or less are kind of a Bernie supporter, right?
In some ways, I suppose. I will maintain that I do not support him so much. I thought I was gonna like him a lot before I totally looked into him. I made like a innocent mistake of just being like, oh, he seems like a genuine guy, not really looking into his policies back when, even before the primaries, when the heat was starting to turn on in like the summer of 2015 before the general election.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff would start eating up the news cycle, just like that when it starts peaking. But then I saw a clip of him. I don't know. At the time, I can't recall, but at the time, it came off like he was for like super, super heavy gun control. And that's pretty much when I lost support because for me, I mean, I do think it's probably a wise idea for gun permits. I do think it should be like a car where you need to demonstrate that you know how to operate a firearm like you would have to operate a vehicle. But as far as restrictions, I'm not really for that. Even
I
if I
see.
do support like a public option that can compete with a private option in healthcare and stuff. I mean, people like to try to cast it in black and white, but there's a lot of people that are,
Mhm.
kind of stuck in this gray zone.
Yeah, I mean, my issue with single payer is that there's like too many definitions of single payer where they include there being like a private option, both a private and a public option, and they classify that as single payer. And I'm just thinking to myself, wait, if you still have people that are able to like pay for their own healthcare and the government is not objectively paying for it all in the country, then that doesn't really, to me, should classify as single payer.
Yeah.
Just my issue with that. I mean, even Switzerland, where they have some private health insurance, is considered single payer. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wait, what? But yeah, that's an issue of in and of itself. But what do you think of Bernie Sanders now with your current beliefs?
Okay, so what do I think about him now? I think if it were back then, um, I probably would have been like a lukewarm supporter of his. I would have definitely not been like a Bernie bro. I'll put that out there right now.
Mm,
Even nowadays, looking back, I just don't like that whole cult of personality sort
mm,
of aesthetic going on. And I guess I didn't really have room to talk back at the time because whether you want to admit it or not, Trump kind of had the same deal going on.
yeah.
But
No. I totally agree. That was my issue with the Republican primaries, that people were primarily supporting Donald Trump because of his personality. Like it became a big personality contest during the later parts of the primary. But anyway,
and yeah, I don't know. I think I would have liked some of his
economic
stances on
policies.
economics, fiscal policies, and stuff. Some of the social stuff he kind of lost me on. Um, I don't, I don't know. When he started, I don't remember. I don't know if you remember when he was like up there with Killer Mike, and honestly,
Killer Mike.
he's
Doesn't
like
ring a
a
bell.
he's a rapper, but he's not really that popular. But he started talking about Black Lives Matter and stuff, and I just it kind of turns me off when politicians start talking about social issues like that, because you got to really start waging out and scaling. And is this like brownie points, or is this coming from the heart? If this is coming in the heart or from the heart, is this like bandwagoning stuff, or what I'm saying? And not to say like I'm not saying that the Black Lives Matter movement's totally illegitimate in any way. There's
Mm-hmm.
some things that they have stood for that I've supported. I feel like the Philando Castile murder was totally unjust, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Um,
I like that's one of the few shootings I actually closely observe, and I could place I can safely say that Officer Yanez was totally in the wrong. I mean, he probably should have went to jail for at least manslaughter. Uh, but hey, at least he got fired from his job.
yeah, and I guess to sum it up, really, I probably would have been a lukewarm supporter. I don't know if I would have necessarily voted for him though. If it
Mm-hmm.
were back then with my views now, I still probably would have gone with a third party option. And, I know it's like a big no to do it, but I probably would have abstained from voting if not that. Um,
Yeah.
but I had like a weird vice versa going on with what really happened because, as I think a lot of people know now, I kind of was promoting Gary Johnson pretty heavily there for months, and then he turned around and over the course of 2 months, like destroyed all of his credibility within U.S. politics, in my opinion, with just
You
such buffoonery.
you were a Trump supporter for the bulk majority of the general election, though, weren't you?
Um, General election. So how do I put it? Um, I had a feeling that Trump was going to win regardless. And I was sympathetic to a lot of Trump's points at the time. So had it not been Gary Johnson, out of the options that were left around the time I was making those videos, I wasn't really a fan of Ted Cruz. Didn't really like Marco Rubio. John Kasich, I mean, he probably would have been a lame dunk, honestly, in my opinion. And Chris Christie, like,
Nobody likes Chris Christie.
So,
if it was him
yeah.
versus Hillary, Republicans probably would have lost in an absolute landslide.
Yeah. I am I'm still a little upset over that election. I think what the American people really wanted was a Sanders versus Trump race. Then again, at the time, I feel like Bernie probably would have taken the win on that one. And honestly, it's still is concerning to me. Like, I'm all for experimenting and looking into different ways to use and allocate taxpayer funds, but once people start talking about your right to bear arms and stuff, kind of makes me a little tense. So
yeah, I mean, Bernie Sanders is considerably more moderate when it comes to gun control because I don't know this outright, but I think Martin O'Malley and Hillary Clinton were more in the camp of wanting to like slowly get to the point of banning even handguns. But at least Bernie Sanders did not go that far. And he said something, I recall him like saying something regarding whether gun sellers should be held responsible for what crimes happen with the guns that they sold to somebody. He doesn't think that the gun vendors should be held responsible for that. Like, it doesn't make sense in his mind. And to that, I say, yeah, good on him. I agree.
Yeah.
But he does like support. The last I checked, pretty much supports an assault weapons ban of the same kind that was made in 1993. You know, from Dianne Feinstein and Bill Clinton. You know,
they banned the automatic rifles and stuff of that nature.
Well, full automatic rifles, the new production and distribution of them have been banned since 1986. When I say assault weapons ban, quote unquote, I'm talking about things like AR-15s and limiting the ammunition count that you can have in a single magazine, like lower capacity magazines. Banning high capacity magazines. That's what I was looking for right there as far as terminology goes. Like more intense background checks. Like as far as background checks goes, I'm more lenient towards that. It's just when you come to outright banning the new distribution and production of gun equipment like higher capacity magazines, AR-15, stuff like that. That's when I get a little bit more on edge personally. But you, despite your center-left economic beliefs, you are pretty strongly for gun rights?
I do not care whether a regime changes or not, or whether we have an entirely new system 100 years from now. I still think that the population of a country should and must have the right to own at least some type of thing that could fend themselves off in case a government turns on their own people, in case they're fed up with the government and decide to take action. Not trying to say anything radical, but, you know, just with the natural course of humans and history, seems to be the case sometimes.
You want the people to be able to defend themselves from both the government and the common criminal.
Correct.
Yeah, that's at least you're still in touch with your libertarian side, your former libertarian side on that issue. Like, but yeah, Red Feather actually has a question for you. Do you think that Bernie got screwed in the primaries by the DNC?
I think Bernie, okay. Just a forewarner, I do come off a bit conspiracy theorist, but I think Bernie was paid off to drop. I sincerely do. I don't think Bernie is a true democratic socialist. I think he's a champagne socialist. Let me tell you why. He dropped out of the race. I think it was about 2 months after he dropped out. He somehow has all this money to afford this big ass, expensive ass vacation home off Lake Champlain in Vermont. And it just doesn't add up to me personally. I mean, I don't know what he was doing on the side. I don't know what type of money he was pulling in. But from what I've read, that's kind of sketchy to me.
Right.
And we don't know what happens behind closed doors. He may have been screwed anyway, because at that time, and even still today, probably you would probably see a situation with that, because the Democrats haven't really learned their lesson all too much.
I mean, I got a question regarding that. Do you have any sources or anything that actually proves that he got money specifically from the DNC to drop out? Or is it
I
just
do
like,
not. That is just wild speculation, and I'm
uh,
just saying that solely based on uh, one half of me is the ultra conspiracy theorist,
right.
and the other half is I read several. Now it was mainly by right wing publications. I don't know if that has any bearing on whether the facts or not are going to be tweaked a little bit,
Hmm.
but probably about 2 months after he dropped, I think it was in like September 2016. He had somehow afforded the money to go out and buy this really nice, almost vacation mansion at this point, in rural Vermont. And other than that, I
So it
would,
was timing.
it was timing. Really, with my mind, I believe it was timing. But I guess if I had to go back into like the more accepted sphere of things, I do think he was screwed from the get go. It just seems at this point that the U.S. government is a bit more accepting of dynasties than an even switch up. Because even the Trump thing kind of ekes me a little bit, because there for a while, he was buddy buddies
Okay.
with the Clintons back in the '90s and early 2000s.
Uh, Wait, Bernie was buddy buddy with the Clintons?
No, I'm saying Trump, because
Oh,
it
I'm
makes me
sorry.
think.
I'm not really paying attention. I'm trying to like share around the link for the browser of this stream so that we can like maybe get more viewers. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the main reason why I wasn't really buying into at all into Trump's alleged conservatism, was because it just seemed too quick. And plus, there was all the flip flops he was having like on the campaign trail that made his beliefs even more illegitimate. And because I thought that he was a fake conservative, or even maybe just an outright Clinton plant because of all that, I did not vote for him in 2016. I actually wrote in Evan McMullen in 2016. He did not
I
he did not arrive on the ballot here in Kansas, so I had to do a write-in campaign for him.
Yeah,
But for a third party candidate, I thought it was fairly successful. He got like
yeah,
21% in
definitely.
Utah. I mean, I have a feeling, and I meant to say this a little bit earlier, but I have a almost have a feeling that if you had your beliefs that you currently have right now, that I can easily imagine that maybe you would have voted for like Jill Stein, probably. Just me personally.
I would say the same. I probably would have voted for Jill Stein. At the same time, like I said, I may have just abstained altogether. And I'm only saying this because I really had a minimal understanding of Jill Stein's policies. And when I really started hearing about Jill Stein, like really, really started hearing about her, it was so far into the election. I didn't, it was just almost irrelevant to me, which is stupid to say now, but it's kind
Right.
of true in a
Even
way.
now, I barely know what her policies are. Basically, all I just know that she basically was the same as Bernie Sanders in a lot of her beliefs.
The way it was explained to me was it was like democratic socialism, but with an extra focus on the environment. That's the way.
Ah,
Is my cousin who lives down in St. Louis actually spoke with her a couple times during that. He's been like he's don't know if he's Green Party. I know he claims to be Green Party now, but he's very much a Dem Soc. Um, was a big Bernie supporter at the time, but he had Jill Stein, and I don't remember what her running mate's name was, or her
hmm.
vice president candidate was, but Yeah, he heard back from him a few times, and that's how he explained it to me. Because it was so late, and I knew that he had been posting about her for the pretty much since Bernie dropped. But
Right.
that's how it was described to me.
A few other questions that I have, like, you've been pretty much, I would say, gone for almost, okay, what's the word that I'm looking for exactly? You were like away from YouTube, like for the bulk majority of this year, it seemed.
Yeah.
So, something that I want to ask out of curiosity, like you say that you were like formerly a fan of Styx, but that kind of almost brings up the thought. What do you think of the Styx and Sargon versus Spencer debate?
You
If you watched
know,
that one,
I have not seen that debate. I rarely watch Sticks Hex and Hammer anymore.
right?
I just and it's nothing really against him. It's just kind of just like it kind of feels weird watching him now. But there
With
will be
your
like
belief changes,
the belief changes and the fact that I did kind of copy him whole cloth for a while there. It just feels weird watching him.
hmm.
Um, but I mean I don't have any shame in admitting I was like riding on coattails. But um,
Well,
yeah, I haven't really paid attention to him all that much. But at the same time, I just don't really like his attitude even now, which is weird. And I've heard a lot that he's could potentially be anti-Semitic, and that just doesn't really bode well with me for some rather obvious reasons. But
yeah, there's like Friday I moderated a debate between Ren Michaelis and another libertarian named Tizzy. And right after that debate, I had a one-on-one DM conversation with Tizzy, and he said that Sticks himself isn't even truly that libertarian because he thinks that internet websites, privately owned websites, should be like forced to platform certain, should be forced to platform people on their websites. In other words, not be given the option to kick them off because because their own private property rights and they do not approve of this person or that person's politics, which that's another issue that we'll get in like later, I guess. But to sum up your thoughts, I presume that you want the government to come in and tell YouTube to not kick people out just because of differences in politics, or what's your thought on that?
I definitely feel like we need to start focusing more on this issue. I mean, yeah, it was a lot freer about 10 years ago on the internet because all the corporations weren't really too interested in it at the time. You know, if you told someone like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, YouTube's probably going to replace TV, they'd laugh in our face. But us being in this generation, we could see how that could easily happen. But I feel like now corporations take notice. I feel like a lot of corporations have a hand in a lot of this. Um, I do think it's kind of like the final frontier of information as of now, and probably will be for a long time. I think whatever comes next will cause a next huge paradigm shift. But as of now, I think the internet's kind of claimed its spot as king of the hill, and I think it's common ground. It should be common heritage. Um, I don't really think it should be tampered in the way that it's been proposed in the past. And I don't really like the idea of you, like, even in some European countries now, you have to pay for like the social media bundle. I know that's a thing in Spain for a fact. I think Portugal adopted that model too. I don't like that. Um, Especially here, we've just been so used to having it common access, and how are we just going to take that all away from a huge percentage of the population? It just doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
All it screams is just, give me your money. But
But yeah, what I was trying to like primarily get at there is that Styx doesn't even seem truly libertarian
Oh
on
no.
that front.
I mean, I know at least the last time I watched him, he kind of proclaimed himself as a civic nationalist or whatever.
Hmm.
Some like 50 cent, 75 cent title. But um, I have noticed in the few times I've watched him, he's kind of progressively moved away from libertarianism. It's just pretty
Hmm.
much, it's just not the same Sticks I remember watching like 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's definitely kind of has a bit more of an authoritarian element to it now. I don't,
Hmm.
and I know that's a loaded word, but I don't mean it in like a serious, like, oh, he's a fascist. I'm just saying some
Right.
of the things he was looser on seems to be more tight on nowadays.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I don't watch a whole lot of Sticks, honestly, but I guess it would not surprise me that because the guy had been preaching pro-Trump talking points like for the longest time, that he would eventually get into the camp of thinking that we need like more tariffs or we need to force private institutions to like open up their own privately owned property for everybody else's speech and so on and so forth. Like that's something that I kind of disagree with. Like I don't agree by principle. I don't agree with the government coming in and forcing like Twitter uh to keep on Sargon of Akkad or Bering, for example, who Bering even just recently now got kicked off of Twitter. I mean, I don't think that they should kick him off just because of differences in politics, but by principle, it is their right to like kick them out of their private property. That being like the Twitter website. You know
But
what I'm getting at?
yeah, I mean, I do not deny that. I just more interested in the reasons they were kicked off. Um,
Right.
and not really bearing because in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of like a blink in the eye. I'm more interested in like the Alex Jones stuff,
Right.
because he had a more appeal to people. And I mean, let's face it, he was kind of like the king of alternative right wing politics on YouTube. By every metric, I mean, you could say like Steven Crowder and stuff, but they seem more like mainstream in a way. Alex Jones was really like the king of the alternative right for a long time.
I
Uh,
don't know if he's like full on alt right, but I guess it would not really surprise me if somebody was to like point out, hey, here's this talking point of where he wants like a white ethno state or whatever.
I do. Oh, never mind. That was the wrong channel. Are you familiar with the channel? Oh, what's his name? Ramsey something. He's kind of like he's like an all out like race realist. He's one of those race realists I think that's like married to an Asian lady, which doesn't really make sense, but that seems to be pretty common in that community.
Yeah, I don't recall watching anyone called
But
Ramsey or anything like that.
Ramsey Paul, I believe, is the name of the account. But
Hmm.
he interviewed someone that was part of an organization that wanted to turn it was either a portion or the entire state of Washington into a white ethno state.
Right, and you know what's extra ironic is that there's this other girl called Tara McCarthy who, she supports like a white nationalism and a white ethno state, and kind of she kind of thinks that white people are superior, and she's also kind of self-hating of her own uh, Armenian heritage because she's like part Armenian, so that would mean that she's got a little bit of olive skin in her, so
Yeah.
she's not fully white, and she hates that part of her, which that is just of how really, I don't want to use the word psychotic, but that is just goes to show of how crazy that some of these alt writers can get to where that you're hating yourself. Um, there was something that I kind of wanted to comment on, but you said that some people called you like a Styx clone. And
Yeah.
you even kind of said it yourself that you thought that you were like ripping off his format just now during this interview.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've seen some Sticks videos, a few, before I had like started watching some of your content, particularly some of your older content on libertarianism, or even some of your stuff when you like started becoming more and more left leaning. Like, I think it's hard for you to avoid becoming like considered a Sticks clone. I mean, if you are a libertarian espousing libertarian ideals and you just go with the simple format of like talking in front of a camera, unedited, well, I don't see that as necessarily ripping off Sticks, because lots of people do that, and they're not like, I don't think they're all intending to like rip off of Sticks, because it's like a stupidly simple format that's just, I mean, I don't know how to put it in words exactly, but it's not like Sticks is like unique to inventing this sort of format or something, you know, just ranting in front of a camera, because you also got to kind of keep in mind War Corpse, who for the longest time did that himself.
Oh boy, War Corpse. Oh, I can't stand that guy. Honestly, I cannot stand War Corpse at all. He's just,
Yeah, I mean, I think occasionally he'll make the good point, but
yeah,
sometimes it
he
can
makes
get
good
rather
points
obnoxious.
every once in a while. But he's kind of like the YouTube version of like that blubbering drunk uncle that ruins like Thanksgiving dinner for everyone. That's always how I
Oh,
saw him, or like the drunk
damn.
stepdad. Like, I mean, that
That's
guy's
actually a
that guy's
good
loaded.
analogy for him.
That guy's loaded in like every video he does. And like even when I was in like the later stages of deep alcoholism, I wasn't nearly as obnoxious. I don't know how I'm not trying to swear. I don't know how he does it.
I don't care if you swear on this
Okay.
channel, by the
I
way.
don't know who's monetized and who's not, and I don't know who's, you know, because some people are like, oh, it's gonna mess up my revenue. You know.
No, I mean, I don't monetize you. And besides that, I think that if I was to like try and make a little bit of side cash off of this channel, that I would probably rely more on Patreon dollars and super chats.
Yeah.
But first I have to get as big as you on YouTube.
Well, they kind of fucked me in the ass, you see. Because the original stipulation, you had to have over 500. So I had over 500 and I applied and I got my partnership, right? Blah, blah, blah. A few months go by, it stalls out. It just flatlines. So I'm like, well, what the hell's going on? 2 months after that, I look into it. They changed the stipulation that you had to have over 1,000 subscribers. And of course, you didn't get grandfathered into that. So I had to wait like another 4 months before. And at this time, my channel is like inactive. So that's a slow climb. So I had to wait till after that, and I had to go through everything again and monetize everything. But I will say, once you cross that threshold, and I've been, you know, I saw the revenue panel and you had the 500 subscribers, and I see it now. It's a lot more in depth now than it was even last like summer 2017 when I was first eligible for that. Um, uh, you get like some pretty detailed stats, and you know, I'm just kind of, you know, it'd be nice to make money. I've only accumulated like $15 and 60 something odd cents from my last check on it, like checking it, but you can't withdraw the money till you've reached your first $100. I got a letter though from Google the other day, not with my legal name, but it said Mjollnir Man, and it was addressed to me in the mail, and they gave me like this PIN code. So I guess they're like, hey, you can be more active and in depth and see all this cool stuff now. So that's what it's like. I mean, I don't have a patron. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't go promoting that a whole lot in your videos, so I did not know till now.
Oh no, I'm saying I don't have one. I don't know
Oh,
how
you
I
don't.
feel about one. You know, it's just
Okay, never mind.
yeah.
Young Punishers in the chat saying, "Hey, what up, man?"
Not much. Not much.
I mean, that's young Mac, isn't it?
I don't actually know. I just know him as Young Mac, aka Old School, and I'm really sorry. My dog is chewing on a toy right now, so if you hear noise in the background, I apologize.
All right. Um, there's something else that I was want to mention. I forgot what it was. Nice microphone, he says. Um,
It's a nice mic. It has better audio quality on videos I've noticed than like music recordings. It seems a bit muddy with music.
Now I remember what I was wanting to say. It's kind of fascinating that your channel was still growing kind of quickly, even though like for the bulk majority of this year you were like pretty much inactive. You like went from 600 to 1200 going towards the end of this year, like
Yeah,
from 500 to 1200 or something like that. What do you suspect that that's because of?
honestly, and I'm not too proud of it. And I'm honestly thinking about privatizing all those videos. I would
John Ramirez.
not John Ramirez actually. I think a lot of people were drawn into my channel after my absence, due to me releasing trip reports. Actually, because believe it or not, that is a very big community, a very big subculture on the internet. Um, but
What's trip reports?
that's literally me talking about the psychoactive, physical, and mental effects and experiences I've had with either a type of drug, illegal or legal, or like a type of ethno drug, like something that it's a little more harder to find, like an obscure herb or something that you'd find like a head shop maybe, or usually online vendors. Um, it was all right at first until you start like mixing a bunch of them together and you're stoned and drunk on top of it and doing nitrous. Like, I gotta tell you, man, my life was spiraling out of control. But
Mm. By the way, I must say to all of you watching in the chat, we got 10 watching right now. If any of you have any questions for Mjollnir Man, don't be afraid to like shoot them in the chat. Yeah, one question that I have though, and was kind of one of the questions I was wanting to ask was where do you see your channel going from here on out?
um, for now, I mean, I have plans. I don't know how I'm gonna put them into action just yet. I would like to start posting some music on my channel as well, and probably a music video or two for now, just to see,
Is that your
test the
girlfriend,
water.
by the way?
Yes. Um. Oh, he said hi. But there's a few like series I wanted to do for a while, but it's gonna like take some time to do it in a way that doesn't come off like elitist in a way. Because I was interested in like doing kind of like not I don't want to call it psychology, but kind of along those lines.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't want to, but I'll probably end up talking about politics once the next election cycle heats up again.
Hmm.
And it's gonna be weird this time because like 4 years before I was like super right wing, and now 4 years in the future I'm like center left. So it'll be interesting, like comparing and contrasting those phases. But
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're like super right wing or I don't know. I don't know the full extent of your beliefs for back then, but you did not seem to like believe in any anarcho capitalism or any white ethno states or anything like that that I would call far right.
well, maybe not that far right. Definitely not. I'm definitely against any form, even if they try to mask it as like docile race realism. I still think that in a way it is a type of supremacy,
Hmm.
and I just have nothing but disdain for the thought of anarcho-capitalism as well as anarcho-communism. I think that's also as equally an ass backwards idea. Um, I just think it's a little bit silly to think that you're going to have a society that's totally free of any type of ruling caste, yet somehow naturally and like an unfettered laissez-faire society, people who control corporations or very rich tycoons will be, in a way, the ruling class. But other than that, I mean, you kind of see, like, I don't know if you've seen some like these outrageous memes people post about anarcho-capitalism.
Right, I've seen a few. Like,
But
as soon as a leaf of yours blows into your your
yeah,
neighbor's yard, it violates the non-aggression principle, and then they strike you with a helicopter because of that leaf.
but in a way,
Something along those
I
lines.
mean, as ridiculous and absurd as it sounds, it's quite feasible in a society like that. I mean, what can I say? I mean, maybe not that extreme, but you know, there's always that one batshit insane person. So, and you know, I don't
Yeah.
want to say anything to Humane Mind because I don't want it to be drawn out into like a 4-hour argument about it. Because I don't know if he still claims the moniker of an anarcho-capitalist, but I know for a
I'm
long
pretty
time.
sure he does.
But to me, if you leave it to laissez-faire exclusively, and everybody starts on the same playing field, you're going to inevitably run into a ruling society, in my opinion.
Here's my thought regarding anarcho-capitalism. Like, ultimately, it might be a moral ideal, in my opinion, but I'm not an idealist, so it's not like I will tolerate nothing but the utmost ideal of my beliefs. You know, my, my main concern with anarcho-capitalism is that, okay, so you have everybody within a society, they're anarchists, they're all their own individualists, capitalists, there's no government ruling over them. And then you have all these other nations that are ruled by a whole bunch of tyrannical warlords. So you have like one of two situations. Either A, the warlord is going to come in and easily conquer all the, the Ancapistanis and then trample on their rights, basically. So that's why I find the military to be kind of a necessary evil in this area. But say in the case of Ancapistan, the second situation would be somebody within Ancapistan, like, creates his own privately owned military that will defend everybody within Ancapistan, and then like all the other Ancapistanis, they like pay him a fee for his protections towards everyone else, and because they pay him, he's able to like buy more equipment or produce more equipment to grow his army, his own private army.
Yeah.
And these fees, it seems kind of like back to square one. Basically, you have people like paying in a tax to fund this military, except the military is not publicly owned, or in that it's like ruled by the people via a republic or democracy or whatever, but instead it's privately owned. So in a way, it's almost like the guy has become his own, I guess you could say, dictator, in that he has pretty much all the military power, and all these people are like paying into him. They might find it voluntary, but ultimately that, say, like, for example, like somebody were to inherit that guy's private military, somebody a lot worse than him, more tyrannical, that inheritor will like become the tyrannical warlord himself, the rule over all the Ancapistanis. I mean, ultimately, it's going to very quickly come back to square one as far as governments go, is my opinion. But you want to say?
Well, though, I pretty much thought about it in the same way. I've always thought it would just turn into, I guess, a pseudo type of government. It would be kind of,
Right.
I just think it would boil down to pretty much what you have now, but everything's just kind of centered around money. Um, and
Right.
it maybe would appear more like an autocracy than what we have now. But I do think eventually you will run into a ruling figure or a ruling class, whether that's bloodline or whether that's who's got the most cash. I guess you just have to wait and see. But with that, that's pretty much my thoughts on it. And you can say like, well, this one person can put money into something that would counteract all this, and it's like, yeah, but this other person has all the guns and stuff, and you're fucked. But
Young Punisher asks, "You like Kid Cudi?" Like, I do not know what that is. Kid Cudi.
Kid Cudi. He's a rapper. He was kind of more famous in like the late 2000s, early 2010s. He collabed with Kanye West on a project earlier this year. He's all right. I don't really sit around and listen to him all that much, but there's some good songs in there.
Yeah, a lot of this interview might deal with rap, and personally, I don't know a whole lot of rap above all, but I'm not a big fan of rap either. I mean, I kind of can get into the older style rap that they play during the adult skate at the skating rink that I go often to. Some of the newer stuff that they play like during the regular hours, like, okay, so throughout the month they'll have like the regular hours where the kids can come in and skate, and the kids just overwhelm the jukebox with this new crap that just rots my brain out personally. But whenever I go to the adult skate, which is like from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m., only 21 and older are allowed to come in because they serve alcohol. And secondly, they just like to get the kids out of everyone's way so that the adults can actually freaking enjoy themselves. But the DJ also plays some older rap as well that I can get fairly into, but I wouldn't go out of my way for it. That's my thought on rap. I'm primarily a rocker myself. Classic rock, hair
I
metal, heavy
primarily
metal.
like rap, but I listen to all sorts of different music. I don't limit myself to anything, Like pretty much I don't really get into like newer country. I'll listen to like the classics, but I mean everybody's got their taste, so
Need to blow the dust off this account. What up? Hey Darkon and everyone, says Mega Wolf Media, aka Godric. Nothing much, Mega Wolf. Just interviewing somebody who I don't often talk to. So okay. I don't know if we have like anything else to talk about, so I might as well like ask this question here. Like, what made you, if I may ask, what helped you evolve from going from a right-wing libertarian to being a center leftist right now?
So that really all started even when I was making a lot of like pro-libertarian videos. There were a lot of questions in my mind I didn't feel were sufficiently answered. On top of that, sometimes you may notice I'll like pause in videos, just like stop and think in my tracks for a second back then, and that sometimes it just kind of felt like I was toting rhetoric instead of actually what I thought was the correct thing. So there's a lot of things I had to take a step back in late 2016 and pretty much reevaluate just about every position I ever held politically. After I kind of took off just I don't want to call it like the rose tinted glasses, but it's kind of how it was with me for a little bit there. I think I just got swept up in a frenzy of like memes and populism, and even I, who back then espoused disbanding this football match, as Sticks put it, mentality in U.S. politics, I sort of, in a weird way, got absorbed into it. And I think after I gave myself some time to breathe and think about it, and I think also being called out on copying him a lot, it gave me that kind of clearance to just go and reevaluate positions, because some things like oh, charity is better than welfare. And yeah, you can say what you want about that, but every time I heard libertarians speak on that, um, it just sort of felt like it was getting brushed under the rug instead of actually fully addressed. And that's kind of when it started to like get to me, like I don't know, you know. So
So essentially, you do not know whether or not it was that you ever actually legitimately believed in libertarianism, or
no, I
what?
definitely believed in it. Um, it just once I got so far into it, maybe once I started really reading into it, I think for a while I tried to make myself be libertarian when I still had questions left unanswered, or solidify that I was one is a better way of putting it.
Mm-hmm. Well, my thought on the libertarianism is that I try to like let philosophical principle be my anchor when it comes to like my political beliefs, like which that means like a bulk majority of the time that when it comes to like statistics, I mean the statistics might prove like the opposite to be the best for society, but that still ultimately doesn't really change my own beliefs.
Yeah.
Is my thought. I mean, ultimately, it may be best to have like net neutrality, but in the end, I cannot by principle support it. That's just one example. I
Yeah.
mean, net neutrality is kind of a pretty much a non-issue to me personally. I couldn't really care less of which way that debate went to, but by principle, I would say I'm against net neutrality. Um, what's your thought on that whole debate, by the way?
Um, I was for it. I can't say that I looked too far into it. I don't know. This was probably like a year ago when that became big news, wasn't it? About that time.
About probably.
But at the time, I was for it. Perhaps I bought into some of the fear mongering portions of it. But to be honest with you, my memory on all of the small details of that debate, it's just really fuzzy. But I do recall that I was for net neutrality.
But now you're just all like, I don't really care.
I don't care. I just do not want it to look. I don't want the internet to look like cable TV, basically.
Hmm. Okay. Because you said you kept on saying that you was for it. I did not think that that was an implication that right now at this moment that you're outright against it or anything like that. Because, like you said, you're no longer a libertarian. But yeah. Um. So like, explain to me. I guess we'll like segue onto the issue of abortion. Segue on back to that issue. Like, explain to me of what your thoughts are on abortion right now, how you came to know of the subject, and what's your history on believing, on your beliefs on it in general.
Um, I was made aware of abortion at a fairly young age. Nothing in like my personal life. I
Mm-hmm.
just was around at the time. Rest in peace. But actually, a libertarian grandfather. Um, very vocal on a lot of subjects, and I was introduced to a lot of concepts probably around 8 or 9 years old, very young age. Um, at the time, pretty much maintained that I was pro life for a long time. As for the history of it, that didn't really cross my mind too much. And then I got pretty passionate about it in high school. I just was flat out pro life. Um, at one point, I was like, I know it's I don't know where anyone stands with this, but I just kind of disavow that view now. But
Mm-hmm.
even in cases of like rape and stuff, I was against abortion, which is fucked up to me now. But at the time, that was the case. Um, and then I just evolved, or don't want to say evolved because that kind of sounds elitist in a way. Um, transitioned would be a better way of saying it. Um, transition to me, the value of life lies more with the person who is already an active member of society than someone
Hmm.
or a fetus that is hasn't even experienced life. Um, and even then, in my eyes, you don't really become an individual till you become self-aware. So what, probably like 2 or 3 years old. And now I'm not advocating, oh, just pop your 1 year old in the head if you don't want it anymore.
Hmm.
I do don't really care. I mean, I'm not gonna urge people to be like, oh, you should consider adoption instead. But in my eyes, it's really the choice of the person who's holding the fetus or life or whatever you want to term it. I used to be on the way other side. I thought late term abortions, who cares? Um, but now pretty much maintain the same stance as I did about a year ago. I just value the person who's already a member of society more than someone who's on their way to being. Whether you think that's cheated life or not, I mean, it's kind of hard being a pro lifer because I remember being a pro lifer and trying to argue, and someone trying to turn it into, oh, you're just being emotional. So I do think that's kind of a hard thing
Well,
to tackle.
when you go arguing about the issue of human life, it's kind of hard for it to not seem like you're
Well,
making a
exactly.
huge appeal to emotion. When somebody accuses me or my fellow colleagues within the pro-life community of just playing appeal to emotion is all, I try my best to dismiss it because it's kind of hard to not come off as that way when you're talking about human life. But anyway, go on.
But yeah, so I do recognize that, but I do think that people who are also pro-choice may do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know it happens, and it's unfortunate that it happens. I don't think that would make a majority of the statistic. I never really understood why this was thrown out so much. I think like most people are on the same page if someone is raped, but that seems to be like a big appeal to emotion within pro-life circles or pro-choice circles. I mean,
Yeah.
um, and I'm sure you've encountered it when you're like, oh, whatever talking point you have, and then they're like, well, what if someone gets raped? I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you, as a pro-life advocate, have run into that.
Right.
I mean, it's a legitimate question, but I
No,
think
it is.
most people, most sensible people, would probably say like, yeah, that would be up to you.
Really. I've talked to
Well,
a lot of pro-lifers who think that if you're raped and get pregnant, that you should just give it up for adoption.
Really, my girlfriend says she has a
yeah.
different experience. That a lot of pro-lifers have advocated for adoption instead of abortion
Like,
in
if
the
I
case.
may ask, since she's in the background there, like transfer the question to her. Like, is she as passionately pro-choice as you, or is she pro-life, or what is she?
Um, well, this was talked about pretty briefly and recently, so I do have a better understanding of her stance on it. She is pro-choice. Personally, the way she frames it is, I think personally she's pro-life. She and you know,
No.
instead of an instance of rape, was it or something like that?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear her?
Yeah, I can hear her. I do not know if the rest of the audience can hear very well, but yeah, if she wants to like clarify,
Yeah,
let her go
I can
ahead.
hear you.
I personally would never have an abortion, unless it was like rape or something like that. But and I'm never gonna say never, but I just firmly believe that it is a person's choice and a person's right. It's kind of where I stand on it. Personally, I wouldn't get an abortion, but because I know there's a lot of families out there who can't have kids, so if I ever didn't want my child, I would want to gift somebody else with that opportunity. But as far as other people go, I'm very much like everyone has a right to choose how they feel personally about something.
Mm. I mean, can she hear me?
She cannot. I'll have to Chinese telephone this one. I just don't want that feedback. You know what I'm talking about.
Um,
Is there a link you can send me so I can listen to it?
Oh yeah, I'll just send her a link real quick to the stream so she can listen to it.
okay.
But yeah, there was a very recent argument around Thanksgiving.
What was I gonna say? I forgot what exactly was I was wanting to say, but I mean, it's good to know that both of you at least have like a moral compass, a big moral compass on the issue. Like, what kind of annoys me the most regarding pro-choice is when you get to the more extremist types that that just throw around the hashtag "shout your abortion," to be that's something to beat your chest about and be proud of,
Well,
they're a minority, but they're just they seem to be kind of almost empty of a moral compass, almost. Whereas people like S-Man, I know that that he's pro-choice, but he still has a certain disgust towards abortion. He finds it to be a necessary evil.
I guess I could sympathize with that. I wouldn't necessarily call it an evil. I mean, I do think there would probably be a lot of probably regret and grief in some circumstances with abortion.
Yeah, and I also
But
want
that's
to.
just I think that's just naturally what comes with it. But you can't provide some life you created a quality of life. It you know
But don't get me twisted. I don't think people should use it as birth control per se.
Oh, did you hear that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it sounded like that she says that she'd rather people go for the pill rather than an actual abortion. She said she doesn't think that abortion should be used as a method of birth control. Is what I heard.
Yeah.
And also, when it comes to the issue of rape, it is more sympathetic, I'll say, than in the case of like convenience, because when I say like abortions for the sake of convenience, I'm talking about like say you got drunk or you were just being careless on making sure that you actually got the birth control before you started having sex, stuff like that. I'm less sympathetic, honestly, when it comes to that case. Like, that was totally your responsibility, and it was totally a consensual sex that happened there. And yet you're going to like terminate your own, to put it quite bluntly, your own mistake. You're trying to like cover up for your own mistake. I mean, it just I don't want to like bash people for it. Like, I'm not an extremist to where I will definitely say, "Oh, you're a murderer," or something like that. I mean, I do personally believe that abortion, to an extent, is murder on a moral sense. On a legal sense, it's not murder, but still, but I don't just go throwing around the talking point of, oh, it's murder, it's murder, it's murder, which is one thing that Owen McDonald should get through his thick head. But that's another issue in of itself.
I've still never talked to that guy. I don't think I ever will, which is probably for the better. But
no, it probably is best for your own sanity. What would she want to say?
What would you say about, like, say he has that argument, but what would you say if somebody was like, oh, well, they got pregnant, but they knew that they couldn't take care of the child. Like, they knew they didn't have the funds to do anything, and they knew that they
I mean,
provide,
that
like, proper care during pregnancy as well, like, say, a drug addict or something like that.
right. And that's where that okay. Forgot what I was wanted to say there exactly. There are some like this is getting into anecdotal territory rather, but there are some anecdotal cases. I know some personal cases, and plus there's the example of Steve Jobs as well, of children who like grew up impoverished. They were unwanted by their own parents. I don't know if Steve Jobs' parents actually attempted to get an abortion, but they pretty much given him up for foster parents, and then he became like one of the biggest billionaires, one of the most popular innovators of the modern times here in America. And same case with at least two examples I know of. One person was actually told straight to her face by her mother, I wish that I had aborted you. This is not me trying to play appeal to emotion. This is just me stating the facts of what she said that her mother said to her. But yet she still grew up to be like an outstanding citizen. And there's another coworker that I work with now. He was like given up for adoption pretty much, and yet he became an outstanding citizen himself. Like they are not so much in poverty anymore. Like they don't go looking back on that and thinking to themselves, yeah, I wish I was aborted or wish I was dead or anything like that. My point is, I think that as far as the case of children possibly being born in poverty, that I think that we should do our best to like resolve the poverty itself rather than just erase them from the equation completely, thinking that we know what's best for them. Like, oh, and what we know what's best for you is if you were to end up dead. And I'm thinking to myself, no, let them determine for themselves if they want to like it gets kind of gruely, but I do believe that suicide is a person's own personal right. Let them determine for themselves if they want to go for that option or if they want to overcome their own trials themselves. And personally, I will say that I prefer a higher increase in welfare than an increase in abortions. Like if we have to like increase food stamps or whatever to like compensate for the all the children born in poverty, then that to me is a highly tolerable compromise. And since we're on this issue as well, I mean, I kind of I consider myself a libertarian overall, but if a person was to call me a conservative, I don't get massively triggered over it or anything like that. But that being said, I would be highly encouraged more gay people adopt children, you know, than they just be left in the foster system, left up to just some straight couple that's sterile to come and adopt them, you know.
You were cutting out there for a second. So
Oh,
you were saying you would not mind if gay couples were to adopt children, correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
yes, exactly. And you know who Austin Peterson is, do you?
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, Austin Peterson, he has this one quote that's floated about where he says, I dream of an America where gay people can protect their pot fields with AK-47s and AR-15s or whatever, however the quote exactly goes, with their automatic rifles, protecting gay couples protecting their pot fields with automatic rifles. I would like improve on that quote. I would say, I dream of an America where gay people can protect their pot fields and their adopted, saved from abortion children with their automatic rifles. That's my ideal as far as America goes. Like, maybe if a person was to like sit down and have a conversation with me, they could convince me that a homosexual relationship is not exactly the healthiest thing. But even then, I would say legally, my legal stance on gay marriage is not going to be changed from here. I'm pretty set in that I think that the government overall should get out of marriage, or if the government was to be involved in marriage, it should like overall recognize both types of marriage, hetero and homo, equally.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
I've
don't
been
know.
rambling a whole lot. I mean, what did you your girlfriend have to say?
Well, I guess out of the both of us, now I hear that. I hadn't really thought about it like that though. I would probably say I might be a bit more lenient on the topic of abortion. Don't really care if people use it as birth control, to be honest.
Hmm.
I would advocate probably
No, Reaper, get
the
back.
pill before an abortion, but
Reaper, get back.
at the same time, it's really not my business. But at the same time, we also have a population crisis we need to start thinking about. So, is that options on the table? Might, it's here to stay, obviously, but you know,
Hmm. I mean, it's gonna definitely be a fight, but you know, see, this is kind of what kind of annoys me about S-Man, in all honesty, and he knows this too, by the way, is whenever he be bringing up Roe v. Wade, and whenever other pro-choicers were bringing up Roe v. Wade, like that's supposed to be like the end of the debate right there. I mean, the whole intent and purpose of pro-lifers is to try and push for a repeal of Roe v. Wade in the first place. Like, I don't believe in just outright banning all abortions. Like in the case of Life of Mother, that's obviously the exception for my case and the bulk majority of the pro-life community as well. And and this is where I deviate a little bit more from the typical pro-life community, is that I believe that within the first 7 to 9 weeks, that it should be left up to the mother whether or not they want to go along with it or not. See, what I think defines human individuality is if brain development starts. At around 6.5 weeks, that's when that brain waves are first detected. And you get later and later on in the process, their human individuality is more cemented, is my philosophy on that. And if I may address what you said on the value of humans, like you say that you value like the person who's already born far more than the person who is not born yet.
correct.
I mean, obviously, I think we can all say that we pretty safely that we all value the born more than the unborn, which is why that we think that Life of Mother is an exception, because we want to like keep that woman in the world because she already has friends and family and people already know her and would much rather not lose her over the fetus whom nobody has got acquainted to at all. But ultimately, say for example, okay, you go talking about the value of a human, like how much it contribute to a society. Is that right? Is that right?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I thought that's what I heard you say along the
I would
lines of earlier.
say contribute, or if not contribute, is somewhat an existing member of society.
Hmm. I mean, on that point, one could say that a bioengineer or welder or something like that, a scientist has more value to society than some homeless person who only has a reputation of being a cashier all his life, but now he's unemployed and out of work. But at the same time, that doesn't mean necessarily that anybody is just has a jurisdiction to kill him. I mean, that's not quite the exact same, because I do realize that the hobo is already born, is not inside anybody. so there's no like bodily autonomy that is coming in conflict with this. But still, I mean, the fetus has not really proven their human value. But if you want to go off of human value, then the homeless person, has little to no value. And even then, a born baby, a baby that's just in their first few months of being born, has little to no value as well.
Correct. I would agree with you.
I mean, I think that the human right to life is one of the most of sacred rights in my personal belief. Sorry, you go on.
I mean, I would have to agree with you. A scientist, I would say, definitely has the potential to impact society more and probably has more societal value than perhaps a hobo. Um, and, once a baby is born, in my opinion, whether or not they're self aware, whether or not they can do things independently, I would still say that's still a member of society now. Um, I'm more interested in the unborn, unknown, no face, no name, pretty much type of deal. Um, I guess human value plays a huge part in my arguments on that.
So, how would you feel if, per se, like, not saying this would happen, but say we were together and I got pregnant and I was like, oh, I'm going to go get an abortion because it is my choice. Like, I'm just interested in how you would view it then. If you were in that position, how would you view it?
It would ultimately depend on how we were financially, how far we were in life. I probably would have a lot of thoughts about it. Uh, but at the same time, I would probably recognize over time it was for the greater good. Ultimately, I guess in a way, my opinion would matter because I'm active in your life and I would be the father of the child, but I also understand where people come from when they say that males don't necessarily get to have an opinion on it. I don't know. It's kind of weird treading. I think if you have a biological link to the fetus, you would obviously have an opinion. I guess it depends on how active you are in the other person's life too. Like if you're just hooked up with someone and got them pregnant, that's obviously a different set of rules than.
Yeah, but I wasn't talking about anybody. I'm not talking about any other hypotheticals. I was just saying, hypothetically, our situation, nobody else's situation.
Inside, I probably would not like it, but if it would be something we would have to consider, it would be something that would have to be done. So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's more understandable if it would ultimately be left up to the mother. If it's like a one-off type of situation, like you got a woman and a man, they just have sex one night, and the man just completely ditches her out of his life. It's more understandable for it to be completely left up to the woman. But if the man was to like stay in her life, I definitely think that he should have far more say. Although, then again, I might be arguing a moot point because the guy who like ditches the woman out of his life doesn't care less. Couldn't care less whether or not he would have a say with what happens to the unborn baby, you know?
yeah.
But in you two's situation, I was not thinking at all that it was just a one off. Like, I presume that you two are quite a happy couple.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
Uh,
that's a no. I mean,
Right.
I have like little to no experience with girls myself, so to see that you have yourself a healthy relationship, that's good on you. My tip my hat to you.
Tips Fedora. I'm just playing. I might have to wrap this up pretty soon, probably in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh shoot. And this interview is just getting interesting. Like we were going all full metal philosophical
Oh
on
yeah.
abortion here.
I mean, I'm sure if you wanted, we could do a second part to this. Um, I probably won't be free again until the weekend though. Even then, I'm not sure.
I don't know how available I will be for this weekend. And besides that, when it comes to interviews, I have a whole lot of other people that I'm interested in interviewing as well. It's just that I want to get to know a little bit better. Like, and I know you a whole lot better, I would say.
Yeah.
So that's great to know. Like within the next 5 to 10 minutes, like, see what can I quickly ask that can be summed up very quickly. Like, what is your thought on police? Like, I know that you don't have some very friendly thoughts when it comes to a police force, or at least that's what I remember, anyways.
Yes. And I guess it's anecdotal. But I have never had a positive experience with a police officer.
Mhm.
I have been in friends' cars when they have been illegally searched. Um, I have, I would say, been treated kind of like shit at certain points by them, even if I was not even up to no good, as they would say. Uh, Also, well, the fact that I mean, it wasn't. I mean, I understand now, but I was shook up for a while because I've told the story on my channel before. I've actually had an officer
Right.
raise a firearm at me amidst a false hostage situation that was
Mm,
meant to frame my best friend at the time. Um, I do think police need to be held more accountable. I do think they need to start
sure.
facing more severe consequences for some of the actions they do. And, whether you like to say it or not, sure, there's bad apples, but bad apples soon become the face of something. And as the saying's got some weight to it, it can ruin the whole bunch. And then there's some officers that do their time and try to do it as best they can, and they never speak out about it because of just how sometimes some of these departments do act like more of a mob than an actual, you know,
Mm,
law enforcement agency.
right. And very quickly, like, what's your thoughts on BLM as well?
BLM,
Black
uh,
Lives Matter, yeah.
Black Lives Matter. I don't and do support it. I do understand some of their messages. I think in recent years it's been blown out of proportion. I think anyone
Hmm.
can just go on and say, "Oh, this is racist. That's racist because X, Y, and Z." Some of the most minute, null and void, dull things you can think of are racist now. But I do think um, that there's a lot of things as white people that we either take for granted or would get away with as
Mm,
opposed to a black person. And, society's shifting and they're being more open minded. But as we all know, maybe a person as an individual can change their thoughts at the drop of a hat. But as a whole, society takes far longer, and it's a much slower process in order to effectively have a whole, you know, um, nationwide change in view. Um, and I think with the advent of internet and stuff of that nature, definitely speeds that process up, but it's still
right.
incredibly slow as opposed to on an individual basis.
And this is my last question before we start wrapping up here. We both have pretty much cemented that we both disapprove of the Philando Castile shooting and how Officer Yanez handled that. Mike Brown, though, what do you think of that one?
Mike Brown,
yeah, way back in 2015 or 2014, whenever the heck it happened.
I would have to reread what ultimately was happening during the shootout, or shootout. I should say shooting, shouldn't I?
Shootout. They were going Wild Wild West on each other. They both were having a Clint Eastwood style showdown.
Obviously, Michael Brown either should have surrendered or fled, because he was called. The cops were called on him for stealing Swishers or something like that, some type of cheap cigarillo.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if this is true and he was swinging at the officer, of course, the officer has a right to protect himself. And I think a lot of people need to understand it's pretty hard for that, self-defense anyway for an officer. Because if you have a taser, you can cause brain damage. If you shoot someone in the leg, people don't really understand that there's so many veins and arteries in your leg that you would bleed out and die probably anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So you're pretty much damned if you do, damned if you don't, because it really always boils down to a primal instinct of kill or be killed. Even in citizen self-defense situations, and if you have to take a manslaughter charge, you have to take a manslaughter charge. It's just how it goes. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it depends if he retreated or something after he was striking the officer. Sure. I mean, I think that would be grounds enough to constitute for murder. If you shoot from someone that's fleeing you or something like that, I mean, like I said, cops need to be held to, I believe, a higher level of scrutiny. I'm not really too keen to this weird bootlicking culture that's kind of arose from Blue Lives Matter. I do think we need to.
Yeah, might have went somewhat over the top, but I don't know. I still don't have a general disrespect towards police officers, just me personally.
I mean, I don't trust them and I don't like them, but I don't go out of my way to be disrespectful to them in any way. I'll put it like that.
Okay. Well, I think that this is the point of where that will pretty much wrap it up. But yeah, I mean, back on the topic of abortion, though, you said that I thought I heard you say something along the lines of you did not think of it that way or something like that. Paraphrasing you.
I think you're referring to when I said birth control. I don't know. I don't really care if people use it as birth control. Like I said, I would probably much more rather someone do the pill option. But then again, it's not my body, not my business. So I don't really know if I even have the grounds to even speak on that.
All right.
Especially with something as intimate and private of a situation as abortion.
Right. Of course, it's the number one issue that I'm most passionate about, and I hope that we both gave each other a whole lot to think about and kind
Yeah.
of get the old gears turning. But yeah, Mjollnir Man, you got anything to say to the audience in closing?
All I've got left to say is that it was a very nice Darkon to have me on. It was a very nice conversation. I am planning a return to YouTube pretty much effective starting yesterday. I don't know how often I'll be posting, but I know it will be dramatically more frequent than how I have done business in 2018 so far. Like I said, you can follow me at Orion Knight _ on Twitter, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is the same name. Well, not same name as the Twitter, but Mjollnir Man as you see on this hangout.
Yeah, and I can say that if 2019 isn't anywhere near as bogged down with drama as 2018 has, that I have a feeling that this next year will be far more productive than this current year. But yeah.
Oh, definitely.
I would like to, yes, that was Mjollnir Man, aka Austin of the Mjollnir Man channel. Orion Knight goes by many names. I would like to thank him for coming on here to like help us get to know him more and have like a very cordial discussion on abortion. Like, I thought it was pretty passionate right here, but at the same time it was cordial. Like, we were able to keep our cool and without needing a moderator.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I thank you for giving me the time to come on your channel after such a long hiatus. I'm on a live stream again. Like I said, it's almost like it's completely new to me all over again. But yeah, I appreciate you letting me warm the waters again.
And by the way, also, last thing that I want to say is I think you look a little bit better with the stubble and stash. Like you showed that one picture on your Twitter account.
Well, that's just a matter of time now, isn't it?
Anyway, Mjollnir Man, everybody. This is pretty much the end of the interview. I'll have more interviews up ahead with probably do Melissa Carley, person that did a response stream to like earlier in this year. But yeah, anyway, stay tuned for all that kind of stuff. And that's all that I have to say. That's all that Mjollnir Man is available to say right now. So anyway, I'm the Dark Conservatarian. Thank you all for joining. See y'all later. God bless and good night.